all so much for braving a dark and stormy evening, one day after Thanksgiving break, to come out to this Unification Town Hall. If you haven't already, there are smoothies in the back, compliments of Vitality Bowl, Mr. Henry, the owner in Marin City, branch in Mill Valley. Really appreciate the collaboration of local business in support of our school district. Henry also hires directly from the community in both of his stores, and so if you haven't had a chance to go visit, not only does he make awesome smoothies, but he's got wonderful paninis and acai bowls. If you're a very healthy eater, it's a wonderful option. There's also some sandwiches in the back. If you would like a little bit more of a substantial meal, please help yourself. Maybe take one home. Looks like we might have a few extra this evening. There is childcare. Miss Quintisha in the back. If you would like your child to go with Miss Quintisha, she will take them to the library and they will be there until you are ready to pick them up. We also would encourage your child's participation at this event and any future town halls. Again, really just appreciate all of your energy coming out. This evening, we're really glad you're here. You all have been working very, very hard, and we're excited to hear from you. Tonight is going to be much more about you than about the Unification Task Force or me. I just want to share with all of you that I am truly thankful and inspired by the amount of work that people have been doing. It is incredible. It is a testimony to your care and your passion for education, to imagine what a unified school can look like in the future, to work on delivering that unified school is critically important, and this work cannot happen without all of you. So thank you for being here this evening, and for all of you that have been working diligently in work groups and sending updates and meeting and imagining things and asking questions. I really appreciate all of your work. The Unification Task Force and I also really appreciate all of your work. As I said, food and childcare. Here's a quick agenda for the evening, and you'll see we're going to get pretty quickly into some affinity group work and then some report outs from those of you that have been working so diligently in work groups. But we'll spend a little moment here on introduction and have a small community building warm up and go over a few nuts and bolts. And so I want to invite a guest to lead us in song this evening. Where did she go? There she is. And so I'm going to turn it over to you just to open the meeting for us, okay? Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Let us open it up with a song that music always inspires, huh? And so let's get inspired by singing "This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine." 1, 2, ready, sing. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I don't believe you. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All in the district, I'm gonna let it shine. Come on, faster. All in the district, I'm gonna let it shine. All in the district, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. If you're looking for freedom, you won't find it alone. But if we walk this road together, freedom's gonna light the way home. Let's sing that. If you're looking freedom, you won't find it alone. But if we walk this road together, freedom's gonna light the way home. If you're looking for unity, if you're looking for unity, you won't find it alone. But if we walk this road together, unity will light the way home. Okay.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming together and unifying in song. As I am wont to do, you will have some opportunities to participate digitally this evening. So please pull out your cell phones. When you see slides like these, you'll be allowed to ring in with some answers to some prompts or some free-flowing questions, for instance. And so what you want to do is text the phone number Itoko Garcia 001. I'm sorry, you want to text the phone number 22333. The phone number you're going to text to is 22333. That's the phone number you're going to text to. And then in the body of the message, you're going to put my first and last name followed by 001. And if you hit send, it should give you a reply. And then you can hit A or you can hit B. If anybody needs some help, I'm going to ask Steve and Jamir here to provide anybody with some technical assistance that needs technical assistance. Just for fun, somebody hit no so we know all the options are working. Yes, this actually your flip phone would work for this. As long as it can send a text message. No smartphone required. Thank you. Why don't you make a little announcement about yourself and your business before you go? Here you go.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. My name's Henry. I opened Vitality Bowls about a month ago in Marin City, and I wanted to provide a healthy food option, and I really want to be part of the community. I've come out to MLK, I've been out to the Willow Creek PTA meeting, and I want to support you, your children, the teachers here. I have given out some gift certificates for kids to have free smoothies. I'll leave about 20 of them here so you can take, and you can bring your kids in to sample the food. We do have a kids menu as well, but what we're known for is that we bring in fresh produce every week. So everything is natural and organic where possible. And we add no ice, no sugar, no syrup, so it's just the fruit. But I'm really here for any of your fundraising activities. I'm here to support. I've given and donated to a number of schools and organizations, and I really want to be part of this community. So being part of Marin City and Sausalito is really, really critical. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed our food.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Henry, for coming out tonight. And I don't know if he said it, but I'll reiterate again, one of the things that really stood out to me about Henry is all of his employees are hired locally here from the 94965, which I think is a really special thing. And I hope other small business owners and large business owners in the community will take his lead and do the same thing. So really quickly, wanted to just recap our vision. Working jointly, the school district and Willow Creek Academy intend to improve the educational and social outcomes of all current and future kids enrolled in our public schools. Both the Sausalito Marin City School District and the Willow Creek Academy boards passed resolutions to explore a unified solution prior to the judgment in the Attorney General's desegregation complaint and are committed to working together in this spirit. I can't say enough about how important that is. Sometimes people send me emails or ask questions and say, well, are we just doing this because of the AG judgment? The answer is no. Both boards passed a joint resolution before the judgment was filed. And I think that's really important. We're committed to engaging all of our stakeholders in a process that builds consensus around the best pathway for Willow Creek Academy and Bayside MLK to create a unified school solution. And we are actively seeking input from and participation of parents, guardians, staff, community, and students. So what will this process do? What is it already doing? It's generating some recommendations to the Board of Trustees and to the Willow Creek Board, considering the advantages, disadvantages, issues, concerns, and feasibility of a unified school solution. As I said, all of you in the room are involved. Many of you are in work groups. Many of you are attending meetings like this. It will create reports that will go to both boards and develop a unification plan on what is most likely to be successful. Want to triple down. We haven't decided anything yet. I'm not going to make a personal decision. The Unification Task Force isn't going to make a personal decision. All of you in work groups aren't making final decisions. You're making recommendations to the school board, and the school board will vote, and the school board will make that final decision, and the Willow Creek Academy Board will vote and make a decision about what they want to do and how they would like to move forward. So I want to take this time to introduce a few people that are integral to the Unification Task Force, because it's not just me. I'd like to introduce Alina Monder. Alina, can you stand up? Let's give Alina a big round of applause. She is a representative of the Willow Creek Board. I'd like to introduce Johanna Vandermolen. Please give Johanna a big round of applause. She is also representing the Willow Creek Board. I'd like to introduce Deborah Turner. Deborah, please give Deborah a big round of applause. She represents the Sausalito Marin City School District Board. And Caroline Van Alst, also representing the Sausalito Marin City School District Board. These folks have put in hours and hours and hours of time and continue to put in hours and hours of time. Not only do they put in hours of time meeting together, but they're putting in hours of time showing up in different spaces and different work groups and communicating with many of you that have different ideas or hopes or worries or concerns. And so I hope all of you from whichever community that you're here representing tonight really appreciate the work of the board members. They are unpaid and giving a significant amount of time to this process. I'd like to also take a moment to introduce some of our district staff that are here. Mr. Jamir Reynolds, our community schools manager. Jamir does an incredible amount of work connecting families with resources in the community, connecting students with resources, working to create partnerships like Vitality Bowls, and just a ton of other things. I'd like to also introduce Dr. Robert Clark, our CBO. Dr. Clark, thank you for also always helping to support and put on all these events and for all your hard work. And I'd like to also introduce Steve Ayala. Steve is our district admin assistant. Many of you that try to have meetings with me or want to have meetings with me often will communicate with Steve to do so, so big appreciation for him. And I'd like to introduce Mark Tong and Brandon Pham, our amazing IT guys. That's why we have sound and video and lights, a lot of these spaces. So I know people always have a lot of questions. And I want to direct everybody to the FAQ sheet that's at the front table here. If you haven't got one yet, there's copies. You can come up and get one at any time. I want to reassure you, sometimes people are coming to meetings like this and they say, well, we ask questions and we don't know where they went, or we don't know what happened, or we're not sure if you heard us, or we don't know if you got the answer. We took the questions from the last 3 town halls and added them to this sheet, if they weren't already on there. If you saw that last FAQ sheet, you'll notice that it's a little bit different. That's formatted a little bit differently. And so through the course of the evening, if you have a question that isn't answered, hasn't been answered, doesn't seem like there's an answer, there will be a space at the end for you to add to this FAQ, and we'll continue to update the document with your questions as best we can. I was working very hard. There's some items on the FAQ that refer to a legal memo. I was working very hard to have it for you this evening. Unfortunately, it wasn't produced in time, but I'll make sure that it's posted on the website as soon as it is ready. I believe it should be happening a little bit later this week, and it'll be on the same web address there that you see on the FAQ. So the biggest question, I think, that people have been asking, and we heard loud and clear at our last board meeting, was a plan for the financial stability of Willow Creek. And I understand that a lot of people were not satisfied with the answer that I gave the last time this was posed. And I just want to invite everyone to lean in a little bit to the discomfort and the not knowing. This is one of those times where I want to invite everybody to take a big deep breath. Because I couldn't give you some answers at that meeting. Very sorry I couldn't. It wasn't because I didn't want to. But we're under a settlement agreement with the Attorney General. And so if I had given you some answers to some of those questions without talking to the monitor, I believe it would have been reckless on my part. Because I may have been offering things that she wasn't going to agree with. So I'm happy to report that I had a meeting with her the Thursday before Thanksgiving break. And together we outlined a potential pathway to make sure that Willow Creek is stable throughout this unification process. A lot of you came and you said, please help us. We're committed to unification. We just need to know that the school's going to be stable while we go through this process. We need a plan. We need a vision. And I truly, sincerely hope that this begins the process of creating a lot of clarity and surety out here for all of you in the community and between our boards. And so a couple of the things that she indicated that she would be amenable to are here on this slide. I think the main ones are here. In particular, there was some concern that the way that the district bills Willow Creek Academy for certain things, and then the way that the district disperses money, might create a cash flow shortage this year. And one of the things that we agreed to is that we would make sure that the dispersals of money come before any bills, so that nobody ever has to worry about not being able to make a payment for anything. This is one way that we can ensure some stability and to make sure that cash flow doesn't get interrupted. She agreed that she would approve the last basic aid excess calculation, which is a little bit over $112,000. The monitor has to approve any expenditure from the district to Willow Creek of over $100,000. And so that was actually might seem kind of like a trivial thing, but it's actually a pretty big deal. She also indicated that she would be amenable to negotiating a multi-year facilities agreement, particularly focused on the pro rata share with Willow Creek leadership at less than the current rate, which would significantly reduce the amount that Willow Creek needs to expend to lease the school. There's two conditions behind that. One is that we work on a settlement for the current Prop 39 lawsuit, and the other is that we accept the 2021 Prop 39 application that was submitted in mid-November. Lastly, and this is the one that to me is really the most exciting, is that she's open for the district to pay for positions at Willow Creek that benefit students at both schools. But one of the things that I've heard from people is, well, if we don't have stable funding, we're going to have to cut positions at Willow Creek next year. And the positions that we're going to have to cut are going to hurt our most vulnerable kids. And so I know that nobody wants to see that happen. We're committed to not seeing that happen. And one way that we can do that is, for instance, pick up the salaries of the ELA and math specialists, which would reduce Willow Creek's expenditures by a couple $100,000, and we can look at other positions too. We just have to be able to justify to the monitor that it can help kids at both schools. And she's also open to us funding joint PD opportunities for staff at both schools. And so I know this isn't like a final plan, but I wanted to share with you, the community, tonight an update, because I really appreciate, as a parent, what it must be like to be working in work groups and trying to figure out a plan and to not see a clear path. Well, how is my kid's school going to stay sustained next year? And so we wanted to make this public as soon as possible, and that's why I'm sharing it with you this evening. And I'm looking forward to working with the Willow Creek leadership so we can work out all the particulars of this. And hopefully we can have a very clear plan that spans the next couple of years that gets us through this unification process. And so I wanted to make sure that I shared that with you all this evening as well. So we have a little bit of a revised scope and sequence and a timeline. We did decide, many of you may have said, well, hey, I thought we were going to have a town hall before Thanksgiving. We did too. We also didn't think that PG&E was going to shut the power off in the community for 5 days. Turns out that it took some time for everybody to recover from that. And we wanted to honor that and give that space, which is why we're having this meeting tonight. I do want to point all of you to the flyer as well. We'll have a follow-up meeting December the 17th, which is a Tuesday. That'll be over at Bayside MLK. I hope to see you all there, and I promise I'll have a different dinner for you that evening, close to Christmas. So I've updated the timeline. The Unification Task Force and I this week will be working to put out a survey that should inform all of your final plans. One of the things I want to invite all of the work groups tonight to do is send in any questions that you think are essential for making your recommendations so that we can get them on the survey. The task force has really been amazing in trying to think up the right questions, but we might not get them all between all 5 of us. And so if you think that there's a really important question out there that should be sent out as a survey question, please go ahead and submit it tonight and we'll make sure it gets on there. I will translate it into Spanish as well. We're hoping tonight just to hear an update from all of you that have been working in work groups. If you don't have like a formal initial draft that's written out on a piece of paper in a report form, that's okay. But I know people have been in multiple meetings doing a lot of work, and we want to hear where you are and what you need so that you can get to the finish line. There's a board workshop next week. I'm not sure if there's a Willow Creek workshop next week, but that's what we had on our original plan. We will continue to synthesize community feedback next week. Also want to remind everybody else of the upcoming Courageous Conversation training on the 13th, 2 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. over at Bayside MLK. If you are working in work groups, you also received a doodle poll from Mr. Ayala about a possible makeup date. We had the original Courageous Conversation training scheduled for last Wednesday evening. Sorry, not last Wednesday evening, the Wednesday evening prior to the Thanksgiving break. And due to the raid by the Contra Costa County Sheriff in Marin City, there was a lot of trauma in the community to many children and families that attended both of our schools. And there was a healing evening that got scheduled that night in response to that. And the facilitator was very gracious. She agreed to cancel. She actually came over and came to the meeting for most of the meeting, and she agreed to reschedule that training at no cost. And so I want to invite any of you that can't make it to the 13th to respond to that doodle poll and see if one of those dates works better for you so that we can get you to participate in the Courageous Conversation training. Well, as I said, we'll have another Unification Town Hall on the 17th. And at that point, we would like a draft report from each group. Also, hopefully, we'll have some survey feedback for you as well that can go into that. And I, and any number of the Unification Task Force that can, will spend some time in between the Christmas week and the week of New Year's synthesizing all of your final reports and editing them into one recommendation that will go to both boards, and those reports will get presented in January. So a little bit of a shift in the timeline, but the end goal is still there, And with all of your support and all of your work, I'm very optimistic that we can still get there. Again, just a quick reminder, we are hoping, it is our goal, it is our aspiration, it is our full 100% intent that the report that all of us generate that are working on unification informs the desegregation comprehensive education plan that is due to the Attorney General and to the monitor in February. A draft of that report is due February 6th. Again, it is our full intent and plan, and I actually want to thank all of you. You might not know it, but every year, both of our schools and our district are responsible for what's called a local control accountability plan. It's the main mechanism that we use to report what we do with funding to the state of California. And both the Sausalito Marin City School District and Willow Creek Academy are in a new 3-year LCAP phase. And so I had the great pleasure of sitting with some of my staff and some Willow Creek staff at a County Office of Education meeting. We have to draft different LCAPs as separate legal entities, but we agreed to work closely on these LCAPs together because we believe that the LCAP for the district must be an LCAP for a unified school. It's the only way that we're going to get there. And it is our full intent for the work that you're doing in unification, not only to inform the desegregation plan, but also to inform the LCAP. And so the LCAP's a little bit of a lengthier process, and we didn't want to have to ask people to wait until May. That's why we have these other 2 reports built in. But I just want to let you know where it's going. And you all have given us an amazing kickstart on LCAP community engagement. Like, truly amazing. Because part of the LCAP is that you have to have community engagement meetings. And guess what? You all have been showing up in an amazing way. There is a sign-in sheet. If you didn't sign it when you came in, that's okay. Steve's going to pass it around. I would appreciate your name and your phone number and your email. That is a piece of evidence that both Emily can use for the writing of the LCAP for Willow Creek and that we can use for the writing of the LCAP for the district. And so I just wanted to let you know that your efforts are not only leading to a unified school, but a lot of other critically important and required work by the AG and also by the State Department of Education. And just a reminder, there's no decision. The decision will be made by boards. But what we have talked about so far, what a lot of people are working towards, is a vision of a dual language, pre-K through 8, science, technology, art, and research, read project-based learning, magnet school. One update that I want to give you that's happened since the last meeting is Proposition 27 goes into law January 1st, 2020. And Prop 27 is a really interesting thing. It focuses on pre-kindergarten. Anybody here have littles, like really littles, like before school littles? I see a couple hands. So Prop 27 is a fascinating proposition because it's going to change the landscape for pre-kindergarten in the state of California. And we hope to be at the forefront of that. I'm working really diligently with a lot of different organizations in the county to make sure that we are. Why will it change the landscape? What Prop 27 says is the following. If in a community that has a high percentage of low-income students, which the Sausalito Marin City School District has, if 100% of those families that need pre-kindergarten enrollment are enrolled in a district-administered pre-kindergarten program, then any available slots can be given to families who might not meet the low-income qualification. So what that means is if your family household income is too high to qualify for free pre-kindergarten, as long as we fill all of our slots, that wouldn't matter, and we'd be able to give free pre-kindergarten to many, many folks in this community. And so that's why the vision of a pre-K through 8 dual language school is so important. So, as I'm wont to do, I believe strongly in mindfulness as a practice to build stress resilience and to process stress. And I know that this process has been building some emotion and building some stress. And so I want to remind all of us that breathing is the best tool that we have to manage our emotion and our stress. It really is. Neuroscience has proven this now 6 ways from Sunday. And the best kind of breath to process our stress and our emotion is a certain ratio of breathing. It's inhaling for a count of 8 and exhaling for a count of 4. And so I'm going to strike my chime, and I'm going to invite all of us to take 3 of those. Inhale for 8, exhale for 4 breaths. And at any point tonight, if you start to feel some stress, or you start to feel some emotion, or you start to feel some worry, keep it in the spirit of civil engagement. I just want to invite you to breathe. That's an opportunity for us to grow. It's an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity to lean in. So I'm going to strike my chime and invite you to breathe 3 times. And when I strike my chime a second time, we will be finished. I want you to concentrate on breathing out any stress or emotion that might get in the way of you having a positive experience or doing positive work this evening. Thank you all for engaging in a brief moment of mindfulness to help us lean into the spirit of consensus building, collaboration, and community engagement, civil discourse, and equity of voice. Just a quick reminder, if you're on a work group, please sign up if you haven't already. Many of you have RSVP'd to the Courageous Conversation training on the 13th at 2:30 and again at 5:30, or respond to the doodle poll if that date and those times don't work for you. So what we'd like to invite you to do is break into affinity groups based on how your child identifies. If you don't have a child at the school, that's okay. But we'd like to invite you to break into affinity groups based on how you identify. Could be that you identify as an African American person, or the parent of an African American student, or the parent of an English language learner, or the parent of a white student, or the parent of an LGBTQT plus student, or the parent of a multiracial student. If you don't find a category there that you identify with, could be Asian Pacific Islander, could be working class, we want to invite you to examine those affinity groups as well. So why affinity groups? Well, first of all, the task force was really clear that we didn't give it enough time last town hall, and so we want to give it some time tonight. And what we find is when people break into affinity groups, sometimes things come to the surface, either ideas or worries or hopes that we think are really important for the work groups to know as they go about and do their work. And so we're going to give you the next 30 minutes to work in affinity groups. And then what we'll do is ask you to report out. You'll be able to report out via poll everywhere, or you can report out verbally if that is more your affinity group style. We want to be culturally and linguistically sustaining and responsive this evening, and technology is not everybody's style of how to report. And so here are the prompts that we would like you to discuss in your affinity groups. What's most important to you in the unification process? How do you feel like our current schools serve your particular affinity group or your child's affinity group? What from your child's affinity group or your affinity group perspective needs healing in our community? What hopes do you have for your affinity group at a unified school? And lastly, the question that I led with, what do you want the work groups to know and understand? So I'm going to invite everybody to stand up. We're going to have to mix ourselves up to get into affinity groups. I'll leave the prompts up here. If I could have, Steve, can you grab a chart paper? And then let's see how we'd like to organize ourselves. So can I get somebody to raise a hand and make a space for African American or parents of African American children affinity group? Looks like back there in the back we have an African American affinity group. So if you are the parent of an African American child or do not have a child and identify as African American, I want to invite you to go to the back table. Could I have somebody raise their hand to, do we have any English language learner, parents of English language learners in the room tonight? Somos únicos. Tú y yo, aquí estamos. So if we'll have the English language learner affinity group up here in the front. Could somebody raise their hand to create a space for the white affinity group if you're the parent of a white child? Thank you very much, Lisa. Please follow Lisa. You might need 1 or 2 tables. Anybody is the parent of an LGBTQ plus student or identify as LGBTQ plus? Thank you. We don't want to leave any affinity groups by themselves. So if you find yourself by yourself, I want to invite you to look at a different identity that you might be able to participate in. And does anybody have a multiracial, create a multiracial? All right, multiracial group over here. I could be in this one too. Do you want to come over here? Porque ser latino es ser de todas las razas, ¿verdad?
I'm tired of being put in the back. My name ain't Rosa. I ain't going in the back. My name is not Rosa. And my feet don't hurt.
Once again, if you do not have a child, please go to the affinity group that you identify as. If you do not have a child at the school, please go to the affinity group that you identify as. So I'm going to put the prompts up here. I'm going to ask that each affinity group choose a facilitator and somebody to take notes. Steve's going to come around with chart paper so you can record your conversation. And I'll ring you back at 7:30.
All right, brother, come on.
I have an offer too. If anybody is the parent of a child with an IEP, neurodiverse child, Terry has offered to facilitate a parent of IEP, or if you yourself are neurodiverse, and identify that way. Terry Harris Green, thank you for your leadership, Terry.
She said.
First they tried to put us in the back. Then they gonna call me, but I
The most important thing for me is making sure there's true equity in all capacities, be it money, be it teachers, training, educators, to work with all kids, no matter what their ability, disability, language. I'm sorry, I'm talking too fast. You got it? You want me to say it? You got it?
Trained teachers.
Okay, all abilities, all students of all abilities. I feel like that's really going to be the true sign of
To add to that, our ministry, we don't need anyone coming in with a safety mentality. Like, your job is not to save anybody, it's to educate them. And I think that bringing instructors into our space, they need to be aware of that. They need to be aware of who they're teaching, the strength that's in the community, despite what you may have heard, that we are an established group. We do understand. We can't comprehend. And I think that's what we want to do, is that we bring in TFA teachers, and things of that nature. We never experienced communities like ours. They come in, and then instead of empathy, it's sympathy. And I believe sympathy should lead to empathy, which leads to empowerment. So that's just how I think in that space. Yes, so picking the side and look at I'm responsible for all of the support services.
just mean of like-minded.
So usually the thing when you want to get something out in the winter time, everybody
Got it. So you got subgroups.
and then from that unified voice, then you present it as a share for everyone to see, and then they can put it again.
Okay, I see that.
Eventually, we'll jigsaw
Setting realistic goals. Two things. Definitely like match the standard of the county, which is the highest of the guys in California. Equity? Equity. Well, if we have equity, we will be competitive. We'll be in that 9.6 average. Second thing I would like to see, I have a thought of a community that is going through a transition and improving itself. Yeah, that's it. And the educational system goes a lot of love. So change should reflect the community it represents. Yeah. Community should have input. Then it represents model change. And like in education,
So you gotta come early.
On the issue of curriculum, I'm totally in support of recognizing an Afrocentric focus. However, the reality is that we're preparing our children for the world. And so preparing them to move through all the cultures, secure in your own and capable of recognizing all.
so global education is
Totally. And I international.
And know how to, like, the unification process is like more like a shop where everybody gets going on just theirs. But you don't have to, they used to call it the melting pot, or we all know that in one day. But really, to be global, you have to know who you are. And then knowing who you are, then go and contribute and learn from people who are not like you, and then become a more well-rounded person. So, yeah, here's how I do it. It needs to. You might be the longest one. I'm just saying.
one of the things we talk about science, technology, and we talk about art. My personal feeling is what I've recognized from others
cultures that engage in the arts, they get the benefits of the arts in the form of learning, healing, the things that facilitate an attraction to the academic part. In other words, I feel that the art has opened up portals of education and learning that maybe will help in the other areas of technology and science. I see that as a top issue.
No, I think we want the same things. We want excellence in education. We want representation.
So we're going to with my mom, a good part of the question from Connie, particularly when you social justice, around New York, forget about it. We've got it, they've got to be able to read, write, and so
Let me add this one more parameter.
We should go to number 2.
That's a good point. I'm going to be quick. 10 seconds. Okay, arts has to be established. Scope of art, there's physical arts, sports, and it has to include fine arts, pop arts, computer arts, graphic arts, and then my saying is arts is everywhere, health is everywhere.
I don't think our schools, particularly this school, sees our children. There are talents that they have, teachers don't even know they have. That's happened more than once when folks have come over here and these kids have, incredible talents, perfect pitch and other. Teachers don't even know they can sing, let alone have perfect pitch. So they're sitting in the back of the classroom. They're not a part of the school. They're not being paid attention. I get that every year, guys, again, every year. May as well be invisible.
We're gonna go around. Mr. Lee, would you just say something? I just want to say something. Oh, I just want to say the education system. And just haven't met anyone. So what we're doing today is not a new concept. We weren't supposed to be one. We were cut to be there and right and be literal. And so I feel like a lot of that kind of notion of thought is still prevalent in classrooms today. There's a backstory to educating our kids because they're not people that look like us. There are people that come from a mentality that oppressed us. And so when you have oppressive mentalities trying to then evoke education into people that are oppressed, it leads to the pedagogy of oppressed. And so then you have the kids that are the lowest performing because they really don't know how to truly
I thought I was going to get seasick.
that a student can attain and absorb and
I ended up being okay.
we're failing in our world, not just in the grade. But it's unfortunate that the rate is the lowest achieving African American gap in California. And so when you look at that data, which is public data, it's sad we're the richest county, and yet we can't help our lowest performing students because there's some kind of block with our how we're teaching and how we're going to connect curriculum to students that have not had a curriculum.
I just moved here. It's hard for me to answer number two because I'm observing and learning myself. I just pulled my kids out of the top school in San Francisco and I wanted to university. I feel like I got something.
So let me speak on behalf of Bayside. So everything that you said, I've been at Bayside since August 1st. We created a Bayside entrepreneurial program for our 7th and 8th graders. Mr. Kemp is going to have our 7th and 8th graders on his business showing them the economics. We created a Young Men Up Distinction program and we have African American veterans being mentored on site. We have a chess program. We created a Bayside News Network that is going to be ran by our students. It's called the Bayside Public Relations and Marketing Firm Management Site. We have individual trauma workshops for parents who may be experiencing. We have the Bayside Men's Club. We have the Parent School Alliance. This is all within 5 months. And so we are, and I can prove everything that I'm doing. In addition to all of the community-based organizations that come onto our campus, I created metrics that I'm going to measure their effectiveness. That is attendance, family engagement, academics, and I created a whole evaluation guide. And I sat down with every community-based organization and said, this is the way that we're moving. Every organization must report a monthly report to us. And we're going to sit, and if you are not in line with serving our students perfectly, you're on a 60-day action because we are on a mission. So this is within 5 months of we are actively changing the narrative. We created a family and community engagement department, which wasn't even there. But I wanted 2 parents, 2 community members, outside business organizations. And like I said, Mr. Kill agreed to sponsor the first business to host our entrepreneurial program. And so we are actively changing the narrative on the ground. That's the reason why he was here today. So again, like I said, I'm speaking from being inside with arts and global education. I lived in Dubai for 5 years, and I know that in the Middle East, math is held to a high esteem, and I know what it takes to compete. And I talk to women that I live in this country. I didn't shoot basketball, I didn't run football. I was an English professor and a financial analyst for a home firm. And I started the first ever mentoring agency for young black men living abroad. And I won an international award for community service in a foreign country. And I show them pictures, they are more excited, they are ready to go. And so we absolutely in that position. I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. I grew up there. I was a blood. We there in the house, 15 of us, cooking crack downstairs. I know the story. So we have vested and committed. Like I said, this is within 6 months first to December whatever today is. So I just wanted to give you guys a
Yeah, I can't blame you. Thank you.
Everyone here, how many of you guys have kids? You guys all Bayside? No. Who's in Willow Creek? Willow Creek. What do we fly? She's the last
Maybe what she said, what I have to say about back in 2000, we tried to we wasn't that kind of and I praise these things in the midst of that. And it goes to something that and hidden talent, the Southern talent. The mama who's working 3 jobs and something like that. And what you said, you put it without progressive agenda, which might make my conversation unnecessary. And I hope it would, but I always felt these things, talent up, and anybody's plan or approach, to make changes around the school environment, as we I don't know how many times when wrong sexual acts and things like that. To sexuality, which I call promiscuity. Thank you. Number 3. Ready?
hired someone before you like I can transfer time to take part in the
Is that question African American Affinity Group or the community that we're part of here? That's like we don't raise it. Your affinity group perspective.
something very tough.
Okay, I'm gonna give everybody 5 more minutes because some folks asked for a little bit more time. I'm gonna give everybody 5 more minutes.
Imagine project. I do, but it's like I don't know what I want to pick. I need to figure out
One of the key values that I
I'm reading it a little bit differently. Honestly, I think with the school developer properly working, all that's going to be here. I think within the communities, something simple to begin a process of healing. People learn to speak. Just like we do in Marin City. We speak to each other. Just say hello. Folks here don't speak. Walking right into this meeting. No, you don't speak. Something very, I'm talking about white folks in this community. In order to heal this, we need to speak. Say hello. Right back. How you doing? It's a very southern way to be. It's Marin City. Absolutely. Invisible Man wasn't what it was because it was just the title. The whole thing is love. I'm not going to say they were without love. I think they just haven't been trained. Yeah.
You think they had to be trained to love each other?
Trained to speak. Yeah.
I think in addition to love, communication, propaganda, you know, they're selling shirts with nigger on it. And people are buying them for $50.
Wait, hold up,
they're
where?
selling all in the hood. It's like it's their new gear to wear in Oakland and New York and Bronx and hoodies, sweatshirts, shirts, t-shirts. I mean, it's just the word nigger has become a word that they think they own and that they can use, and it's a different nigger than the nigger that you saw folks educate themselves on what not to be putting your money into. Because when you put your money into that, then you continue to give those people the power to call you that. And they don't, and they not only do they continue to call themselves that, but they're proud of it. They wear their game. I'm not saying it's not our fault. I'm saying that in addition to healing, we have to go back to why are we buying it? Why are we allowing that in our classrooms, in our schools? I think it's learning that in schools. They are not told to take that off. And gang gear, that's a whole other conversation. Don't get me started on gang gear. That requires some healing too. When you come proud enough to wear your gang gear to school, because that's who you are, and you can't separate yourself from that.
I think my answer is close to hers. Because what you said is
I had
really
a first
important.
grader come to school in a gang gear. Here. I don't think they knew. The gang hoodies, like the dragons.
I relate to what you said because I'm new here. I got here. They don't even have my racial category on that list. So I don't know where to go. I'm comfortable with anybody.
That's what we all should do.
Right?
That's what we all should do.
When I walk in like you guys are walking by me. They don't know me, I don't know them. I wouldn't put that on them, right? I want to give them a chance. I'd like to say that I'm walking in the room right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you guys come up to me, you guys know me now, right? I'm not hard to find. So, I wouldn't put that on them yet. It has. I don't have that history. But sometimes when we come into something fresh, we don't bring all the baggage with us, right? I know, and I'm here too, and I have an experience too, and it's just beginning. So we all get to express whether we agree or not, we get to express what we're feeling. That's how I feel. I'm not letting anybody become a majority over me. I'm going to get to know that I'm going to get the effort. And I live in Sausalito. I haven't seen a black person yet. But I haven't seen a Chinese person either. Okay? You are. I would like to. Right? But hey, let's be real though. On Sunday, the most segregated day in the United States. Black folk, Chinese folk with Chinese folk, and white folk with white folk. And that's just a fact. And I can't stand that. Okay, that's nice. It can't. But I go to a church that's like multiple.
Brandon, let's go.
I'm just saying what I've seen so far.
Thank you, everybody.
I know which districts care about what.
Thank you all for your incredible work. I do, just in the interest of time and the agenda, that was the 5 extra minutes that folks asked for. So I want to invite us to report out a little bit. You have a couple options. I'm going to pass the mic around for people that want to talk, or just in the interest of time, if you want to upload some things to Poll Everywhere, you can do it there too, or both. Who would like to go first? Mixie's in the house. Multiracial affinity group. Thank you, everybody, and our ELLs.
Yes. Hi, or hola. I'm Laura Gonzalez. I live, can you guys hear me? I can't. Is this, okay, there. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura, and from the multiracial group. So for the first one, we talked about ensure all backgrounds have a voice. Things are not always black and white. This was a big one for us, and I kept bringing up the term intersectionality, which if you're not familiar with intersectionality, it's that we don't all identify as just one label. It's easier to put a label up on a screen. We don't all identify with just one label, and because we're not just one label. I'm a woman, I am Mexican, I am an immigrant. There are a lot of different labels that can be added in different layers, and we just want that part to be seen and that part to be identified and for people to feel safe with it. Think of diverse backgrounds. Someone in our group was saying she doesn't actually even identify with a racial background. Let's think about that. Let's think outside of the box and really make sure that everybody is welcome. Bringing out the strengths in our diverse backgrounds and how do we showcase diversity. We were talking a lot about how every single group has their different strengths. They're all different, and different isn't bad, so let's embrace that part and see how can we use our differences to come together and bring strength into what our children are learning. The second one, current schools, we felt like it does serve the sub-communities, but we need to keep their richness of different cultures in unified schools. We don't want to dilute any specific culture, instead lift all cultures together. Third, give voice, power, safety, and a sense of belonging to the Black community. We talked a lot about being multiracial, what it means to each one of us, how do we feel in different spaces, what is the safety of the spaces that we're in, do we feel welcome, and what role we play in that. Not just in the label that we identify in, but our neighbors too. Are we welcoming everybody into our spaces? Are we feeling safe in our spaces? We really went into the history of our community as well. I've been living here for 1.5 years and have been really interested, so I've been doing a lot of research, doing a lot of Googling, going into the community and talking to people, getting coffee with Damien, learning about what's going on. Our history, the reality of it, is that Marin City has been excluded in a lot of ways, and that's just a reality. So we need to make sure that the community is respected and welcomed and safe. We talked about the fact that the reality is we don't really see African Americans outside of Marin City. What are we doing that they're not coming out? How do they feel when they come into our spaces? Why can we go to the park in Marin City, but when I'm in the park in Sausalito, I don't see the African American community? What are we doing to not welcome them into our community? And we kind of talked about how that shouldn't depend on the African American community. That depends on us. Everyone needs to play a part to create a unified community and speak out against biases and injustices. So we talked about if we're raising our kids and we're talking about the schools, we need the conversations to happen with our children and make sure that they're aware that we do have biases. Like, that's just a reality. And if we don't accept that, we're not going to be able to create a difference. So we want that part to really be acknowledged. Okay, again, understand the history and background of what happened, and then unify to work towards a new school. As a Mexican, I also kind of brought up, I was just with all my research that I did, I also found that there is a really big Latino community that is actually below the poverty of the African American community. And that's another community that I don't see. I see you, but where are all our other Latinos? Why are they not here? Is there Spanish? My kids aren't in school yet, so I don't know. They're just questions that I have. Is there Spanish? I don't know. Here. If one of those parents were to be here that doesn't speak English the way I do, would they feel welcomed? I don't know.
Tonight we have translation.
Okay, that's really good to know.
And I have made a commitment for us to have translation at these
Okay,
meetings.
that's amazing.
The question now becomes, I think, one of
Yeah.
It's a very legitimate question.
I would be happy to be involved. So that's kind of what we talked about. Anything else? Yes.
My name is Jameer Reynolds. I'm the community school manager for Bayside MLK in the school district. And so we started with question one, is cultural importance during our students' educational journey, especially with African American history, to ensure that there's a pure educational experience, no watering down. We have to remember there were more people than Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King, and so many other people. But it seems like we only report on individuals who were docile and didn't fight back. We don't report on Shaka Zulu or Nat Turner or anyone else. And these help lift up a people and start a revolution. Real brief, prior to coming here, I lived in Dubai for 5 years. And so I know what it's like to be a black man in a foreign country with Arabs who identify as white, and even though they were the color of my skin. And so this is in 2017. True equity in all capacities. We're talking about funding and properly trained teachers of students of all abilities. While we appreciate TFA and not knocking that system, I actually asked the TFA teacher, do you receive cultural and social-emotional support to support the students that you're serving? This was in Richmond. His exact words were, we received 30 minutes of training and that was it. Okay? And we don't want teachers to come into our schools feeling sorry for our students, because we believe sympathy should lead to empathy, which leads to empowerment. Okay? So let's not wrap our judgment in sympathy. Come in and believe, you know, this community is strong. It has survived so many things and so many roadblocks put in place. We're still here, we're still fighting. Yes, I say we, because I am a community member of Marin City. Commit to change both internally and externally, and really doing the work. While we love fantastic names and all of that, are you really doing the work? And what are the metrics that you're using to judge if you're being effective or not? Or does it just look good on an LCAP? Setting realistic goals and being real with ourselves. We don't want to set the bar too high that we can't reach it. Okay, slow and steady wins the race. Have a rigorous curriculum. Okay? It's a lot of our students who are very gifted and talented, but they're not being pushed. I know this because they come into my office every day. Equity, match the standards of the county. Change should reflect community input. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to invite all our speakers actually to
Oh.
come speak from the front of
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Everybody gets to feel some love.
Brother Ricardo, again, I'll reiterate, equity match the standards of the county. Resources should not be pulled from one and give to another. They should be equally dispersed, and everyone should have an equal opportunity to achieve. Have a global educational experience, which means, let's talk about some things outside of Marin City, something outside of your classroom that these children can attain. Even though I was good in track, I didn't play basketball or football or any other sport, didn't lead me to travel the world. It was my mind. And I really think that we really need to push that your dreams are achievable. This world is really small. And if you just put your mind to it, you can achieve it, because you can buy a plane ticket from San Francisco to Dubai for $440 round trip. Okay? All right. keep, keep your identity solid. And we're speaking from the African American Affinity Group. We want our children that when they look in the mirror, they see something powerful. They see someone powerful, okay? We know, thank you. We know what they're faced with every day. And do not be so caught up in because someone is sagging their pants that you don't see the jewel that they are. Because you might be looking at the next mathematician, the next poet, but we're so caught up in outward appearance that you're missing the opportunity to connect and empower. Arts are essential to learning. And so having a chance to focus on journalism, physical art, pop art, just having that open exposure, maybe you might find a different way to connect with using your math or reaching your ELA goals because you're working outside of the box. For number 2, the lack of exposure to various cultures. Okay? We know that this world is made up of so many wonderful people. If we look in this room, we see all these flags. But how many of us actually talk about the countries on these flags in our classroom? Or do we try to stick to the standards of California and meet test scores and everything else? What's the point of having these flags up if you can't even talk about them? Okay. Children should be assessed differently. African American children in particular. They face different environmental factors. And so we process trauma differently. And a lot of our trauma is complex, which means it's ongoing because we're inundated with it through the news, through the interaction, through the streets, even amongst themselves. Okay? So we can't have a cookie cutter test and assess all kids the same. Students lack the opportunity to display their gifts and talents. Okay? You do have jewels sitting in your classroom, but they feel oppressed and confined because they don't want to make their teacher upset. Okay? Fighting against the system created to oppress. Okay? I know you guys, might hear oppressed a lot, but it's happening. The educational system is designed to do that. Okay? AP classes. I like to welcome my brother Brian. He's new to the area. Really appreciate you. He brought this up of having AP classes. Holding the families accountable. How many of us sit in meetings, especially like costing meetings, and talk about the student, but forget there's someone standing behind the student? We have a lot of parents who are young, who need mentors, and we place all this responsibility on a 9-year-old. We need to be realistic, okay? Having a holistic approach, aggressive outreach. How many of us actually walked down to Golden Gate Village? I know I have, and I'm not even from here. And it was hard for me, even though I'm African American, but I made myself vulnerable enough. And I'll even say, when all of that stuff happened, my colleague and I were the first people on the ground there. And they said and all of the families that were affected were Willow Creek families. And I told them I didn't care. I'm still here for you. We help people clean up their homes and everything else. And so if we can humble ourselves to be in that position, I think we need to take advantage of it. Okay? Stop working in silos. We have a lot of organizations doing the same thing. Okay? Like, I understand that your intention is good, but what else can you do? How can you expand your portfolio? Do you have a family outreach program? Okay? For self-respect, for our young folks who use the N-word and use the B and everything else, let's breathe life into them. I see you, young king. I see you, young queen. Do you see yourself in your neighbor? Positive communication. When African Americans walk into a room, or brothers and sisters of another race, do we even speak to them? Do we see them? Let's have a collaborative discussion. Accountability. My brothers and sisters feel that an apology is needed from the city of Sausalito and Marin because of how it was designed. And I feel like they're owed that. Enough is enough. 60 and 70 years of the same thing, to be confined to one area, enough is enough. Okay? Mentally reinforced activities, or just speak, just say hello. They don't bite, trust me, all right? We are not invisible. Negative self-reference, economic power, restorative justice. Thank you.
I think you want me to talk.
Okay, Marcy, let's do this. I think there's another table too.
Yeah, there's.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay, I believe there's two groups, so we'll go first. We were the white table. So most important to Unification, preserving Willow Creek Academy as an excellent school, serving students in the district going to Willow Creek Academy. We've done a lot of work in this district and at Willow Creek. We've done a tremendous amount of work, and the thought that we can step into another school and be as positive as Willow Creek is to all students is a big concern. And so all of us moving together to serve every student. Our second point, both schools unify and create a fantastic place for learning, maintaining diversity and opportunity of Willow Creek Academy. What needs to heal in our community was the third question, to meet families of color in a different way than we traditionally have. So in leadership roles, bringing up, we do want leaders of color, and not only of color, of every race, which has been a voice at Willow Creek. And so we also agree that it's not a black and white story, it's all races. And so keeping that perspective, because that is the global current perspective. Some feel there needs to be healing after the AG decision last summer, and that WCA was scapegoated. You look at any other school in Marin County, aside from San Rafael, it's pretty darn white. And so there is some healing that has to happen toward white families that chose to bring their children here and went toward other schools and were not comfortable with how it was represented, that this wasn't not how we want to raise our children. And to then be blasted after making that decision, putting your heart and soul into a school and the community, black, white, brown, loving this school, and then to be blasted at every point that you turned. You know, New York Times, Washington Post, LA filmmaker wanting to come up and do a film about a white supremacist school. It's been really challenging. And so the families that chose to be here because of all the different colors, there is some healing that has to happen for us. And what are our hopes? The unification will better the experience of every single child in 94965 and provide more opportunity and diversity for everyone. Thank you.
We are another part of the white affinity group. I think there's another part too. Yeah. Okay. No, she was going to be the holder. Oh, she was good. Oh, that's okay. You can be the holder. I don't want to repeat what's been said already. I want to really deeply respect the first group that went. It was really moving.
the way you framed everything, the way you spoke from the heart. I really resonated with that. What is most important? I know that wasn't the entire question, but what hasn't been said already, continued transparency in the process. In the interim, financial fairness to both schools. No sense of outsiders or insiders or us versus them. Physical site selection that symbolizes unity. So meaning there was a sense that we were meeting in two separate schools and sort of deepening the divide, and maybe there's a way to meet somewhere else that both could come together. Create a temporary working new school name to unify us in name first, and then focus on that. Consider new and better ways to reach all stakeholders and incorporate students and youth more in these discussions and in these ideas we're coming up with. We had one wonderful student at our table, and we wish we had more. Am I missing another student? I apologize. How do current schools serve the community? How do the current schools, and that was an intentional question, had plural in it, serve the community? Not proportionally. Willow Creek serves the white affinity group well. There's a sense of belonging there. It was felt that Bayside MLK attracted white volunteers. And Willow Creek, I'm sorry. I'm probably going to say this wrong. Maybe I want to have you say it better than me. Willow Creek parents are prioritizing diverse experience over going to a different school, which would be focused on academic achievement. As you said with the flags, that they represent countries and cultures, but and they may be tested on a test score, but they don't. How much do we actually know about these cultures? How much do we actually appreciate these cultures? And the Willow Creek parents are here because that's what they want to do. What needs healing? I think someone just coming before mentioned something about the Willow Creek parents feeling labeled, and by New York Times article, for example, that they weren't very comfortable with. Healing between all kinds of stakeholders across generations, activities, schools, and interests to move forward our whole community. There was a need for healing around a sense of closure for how we got here. We don't know what that looks like, but we wanted to heal around that. And it's funny, there was sort of a discussion about who was the bad guy. And can we find the bad guy? And I think I'd really like to explore that more, because that's a real opening. I don't know what that means. I mean, it's sort of like, was there one evil person who made this happen? You know, no. And I'd really like to dive into that more. I'm just reading what the group came up with. I don't know what the fourth question was. I don't think we got to the fifth question. Hoping we can find ways to save money through the unification process. Oh, this is about the hopes. Hope to produce a generation who have an acceptance of other cultures. The importance of cultural relevance, understanding white privilege and being aware of our biases. Did I miss anything? Okay, thank you.
Hi, I want to first acknowledge this is really hard work, and it's not totally comfortable. I'm not comfortable being up here right now. White. Yeah. I learned today about different ways of approaching these kinds of conversations, and there being believing, thinking, feeling, and acting, and there was a lot of feeling at my table, especially around certain ones of these. So anyways, a lot has been said before. In terms of what we would like to see in a unified school, keeping up academic levels, equal opportunity, and retaining the best parts of both schools. The second question was about how well the current schools serve our affinity group, and at the table there was 2 parents and 2 community members, and each parent felt that the school they were at, one of each, served them well. And from a community perspective, there was the feeling that equal opportunity has not been well served. So as a community, that being under desegregation does not feel good. So you don't just have to have students at one school or the other, but that there's still something missing there. The third question had to do with healing. There was a sentiment about just the right sizing of school to the community. So we have a small community, and it doesn't feel right to have multiple schools when we could have one school. And then there was a white feeling about desegregation. The continual talk about desegregation can feel off-putting. And that also goes into the distribution of funds discussion, and a sense of somebody's accusing us of segregation, and a lack of acknowledging positives of Willow Creek, which is a diverse school. Number 4, I forget the exact question, but understand what we hope for a unified school, that's what it was. Understanding and internalizing white privilege amongst the white students. Also keeping up integration. There was a great example about sports, like after-school sports teams in the 94965, and how they can be almost like an ambassador of setting an example of diversity and anti-racism throughout Marin. And encouraging courageous conversations among students, and among white students in this case. And then number 5, what would we like the task force, the task groups to know? We talked about, the history of the school district and the communities in 94965. Can we possibly incorporate that understanding into the task force groups? Thank you.
So I just want to thank everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. We got one more? My bad. Thank you.
We are representing the LGBT plus community, and I just first want to acknowledge that it does seem a little strange that there were 3 different groups representing the white group. So in the future, we should figure out how to consolidate so that we're not taking 3 times as much time. That's just note. So we're going to be really brief because we were really underrepresented here. So our experience was, and we've never met before tonight, just FYI, was that there was no acknowledgement really, and Kate's first story was she received a document that basically talked about moms and dads for all kids, when that wasn't necessarily a thing in New Jersey where she had come from, and was a little astonishing that that was, now, of course, the teacher said, of course we can change that, but the fact that that exists here in Marin County and in Sausalito, Marin City was a little...
2017.
What needs healing? I think even the term, I don't know that we're going to change that tonight, but when my son was 6, he told me he was going to be a physicist, an astrophysicist, and when he's 10, he told me he was pansexual. I asked, what does that mean? He said, I'm going to love who I'm going to love. I said, that sounds great. And I think that the more that we can find words that welcome and honor and accept, it will relate to all of the groups that are meeting tonight. And what is our hope, or what needs healing, which may be our hope at the same time? My hope, and Kate said she doesn't like public speaking, but she's going to kick me or elbow me if I'm not speaking for her as well. My hope is that we really slow down and listen to the voices that are not usually heard first. Number one. And then we work really hard to stand all the way over here to somebody's shoes that we may never have stood in before. Because you can't see my face and you can't see what I'm feeling right now, so you have to listen and look really hard and a little deeper. And that with that spirit, we can dream and collaborate and ideate. And yes, I'm a hopeaholic, but without hope, we will not create a dreamy environment for all of our children. So that's my hope.
And you spoke well for my hope as well. I would also say that when we talk about the future school and we talk about it being an art school, my experience with my nieces that we talked about, and they go to a charter school in Southern California that's an art school, and their group of friends and what that has made possible in terms of kids talking to each other and using the arts as that access point to really share a diverse perspective and experience has been phenomenal. So that's one hope that I have when we talk about a, what is the term, smart school, star school, star,
all of that good stuff,
whatever it is. But yep, that's my hope. So.
Yeah. I think that's it. Thanks.
So I just want to thank everybody for their tremendous courage. Whether you've been to a courageous conversation training yet or not, and I hope all of you come, this is what it takes. I want to thank everybody for experiencing some discomfort, leaning into that discomfort, recognizing it as a place to grow. I want to thank everyone for speaking your truth and staying engaged in this process. And right now, in terms of affinity groups, expecting and accepting non-closure. We're going to have one more, and then we started this meeting about 25 minutes late. We're about 15 minutes over, and it's still really important that we hear from the folks that have been in work groups. So I won't take it personal if you have to leave, but I'm going to invite everybody to stay just a little bit longer.
Sorry, I had 2 groups that I needed to be a part of. I'm the resource specialist for special education here, and I just wanted to give a voice to our students with disabilities and our families of students with disabilities. So I just jotted down 5 quick things that I think should be noted. Equitable access to all areas of educational experiences. We need to heal from the tracking that has happened to students with disabilities, from intervention programs to being put into a completely different place while curriculum is being taught because they couldn't be properly managed in class by the people in charge. identifying students with disabilities properly and effectively so that we're not over-identifying students because they just need a different way to learn versus actually having a disability. And my hope is to have students able to access curriculum in a multi-dimensional way, and that there's money for that curriculum to be brought into our communities for all students to be able to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to invite you to reassemble yourselves in your work groups. So we'll take a little quick 2-minute transition. And everybody, before you stand up, let's take one big deep breath together. Thank you. All right. Work groups. If you're in a work group, you know who you are. If you're not in a work group, that's okay. If there's a work group that might interest you, that you might want to participate in the future, we want to invite you to sit down. I'm going to give you work groups. Most of you have been doing a lot of work, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes to collect yourselves around the progress update that you want to give, and then I'm going to ask everybody to keep it to a 2 or 3 minute update.
Yeah.
mic, record it, and then get heard. Yeah, I think the person who's running around, she's recording audio for she's from a different source. It's just me and John. We're official. This is going to be an official podcast. Any other persons or people? I've seen a couple, maybe.
And I say listen, you say listen. Thank you everybody for your engagement. Just in the interest of time, I want to do a quick whip around and report out. Please try to keep it to 2 to 3 minutes because it's late and I know that people's energy is fading, but I want to hear some of the work and I want you all to hear some of the work. If you have sent me updates of your work group and I have not posted it on the website yet, I apologize. I'm a little bit behind on some emails. I'm going to catch up tonight, no matter how late I have to stay awake, and I will get your updates posted on the website so you can see what the other work groups are doing on the Unification tab by following the links. But I want to let everybody report out really quickly so that we can close down this amazing meeting. And I just want to thank all of you again for staying late and working so hard to make all of this a reality. Tonight was really inspiring and a little emotional. And so I just want to thank everybody for hanging in there so late.
I'm Felicia Chavez, and I'm part of the process group. And so we stand back and look at the process. And on November 12th, we submitted a document with a few points of feedback about the process as we had observed it to date. So some of these things may have changed in the interim, so I'm going to try to be quick. Number one was just suggesting weekly or at least bi-weekly updates, because in the absence of ongoing communication, sometimes it felt like we were losing our way. And so we were strongly encouraging regular communication, including like a timeline graphically pointing out exactly where we're at in the process. And then the second point, that was our number one strong feedback. Our number two strong feedback was addressing division head on, that this community faces an uphill battle to achieve the unity ideal. Marin County has a documented history of racial and economic stratification, and that reality is the backdrop against which this process is playing out, including in our own process group. And I realized we needed a process for the process group. And that the Courageous Conversations training had been missing, and we had to feel its absence. And so we're glad to see now that it's popped back up. And that if additional professional facilitation help is needed, perhaps the Marin Community Foundation or another source would financially support that, as the outcome of this process significantly impacts the larger Marin County community. Then we had a general feedback section, number one, timeline starting to feel rushed for some members, clarifying how and why the timeline was set as it was, extending if at all possible. Number two, anything we can do or other groups could do to help increase involvement of Bayside MLK parents and more community members in general. Number three, would it be possible to create a shared Google folder with all subfolders? I think that was done. Number four, it would be ideal to ask the groups to review/consider either the vision section near the beginning of the PowerPoint presentation, or more generally to examine the implications of their suggestions from ethical, cultural, and historical perspectives before making recommendations to the task force. And then we had a contentious issue, family flight section, where of our 5-member group, me being the facilitator, not taking sides, there were 2 people on each side of this, where 2 people felt that the process group should address the family flight issue. 2 people felt that that would be inappropriate, and recommending for, something with regard to this. I don't want to, it's a whole other page and I don't want to take up more time, but it should be online if anybody wants to read our take on it. Thank you.
Hi, whoever's left. We are the curriculum, we're part of the curriculum
group. Where are we standing? We're like barely awake. We are part of the curriculum group, and we decided that on the base of a foundation of top-tier academics, based on standards, state and national standards, that we would establish pillars that would embrace equity in education for all students. All, like I'm not gonna nitpick on the all students. And Ms. Florence is gonna talk for a minute about what those pillars are. What our pillars are.
Yeah, so we met every week. Every week. And we brainstormed, and we had a really engaged group. Some of them are not here tonight, but the pillars that we came up with: social justice, culture, art, technology, healing, school structure, climate justice, and indigenous wisdom. And so we advocate for a new approach that brings the best of what's working at both Willow Creek and Martin Luther King Bayside, and we combine this with the best of what's working elsewhere. Because what we did, we researched other best practices. And so in connection to each one of these, we have a link to some best practices out there, and it's a lot of good stuff. We don't have to invent the wheel. It's a lot of good stuff out there. And so,
I know she said it.
Yeah, so we just will continue to do this, and we've just spent so much time in our group. I'm not going to really present, but more talk about our process, that we meet pretty much every week, and we run over pretty much an hour every time, just talking about all our various backgrounds, our dreams and visions, professional experiences in education, working in the community, and then we've all been through school, and we want the kids here to have at least and a lot better academic experience all around.
Okay. Yes. And so what we really looked at is that in our pillars and in the curriculum itself, research has found that even more important than the curriculum that's being taught are the people teaching it. And so specifically for Black and brown children, we feel that it's important for our staff to reflect the student body teaching the curriculum with high academic rigor and standards and expectations for performance. And very important, I want to say very important, combining climate change with indigenous wisdom and really reflecting the indigenous reality that we're on within the curriculum as well.
Yeah, and so we just also want to say that we bonded. Dr. Garcia, your unity is working, and and so we to the point that we're going to celebrate at our next meeting. Yeah.
We have a whole menu lined up.
She's cooking black-eyed peas.
For the school climate and culture, we met 4 times, each in the 2 town halls, and then we had a meeting in room 9 in my classroom with a pretty large voice of wisdom in that room. I felt like we came up with about 25 different critical pieces that are going to make unification an amazing process for school climate. And the challenge for us was that once we got to all of those amazing ideas, that there's a lot, I'm not even going to try to go through that whole list, we had an epiphany that there was no student voice in any of the lists that we had generated. So our number one recommendation at this point, now that we've done the work of a Zoom conversation and all these other meetings, is to now go out to the classrooms to speak to the students and to generate from the students what is their vision for a school culture and climate that is the bomb diggity, right? We want it to be what they want. And so we want to ask what languages they want to learn, what music, what art. And for the youngest child, because we want to hear everybody's voice and perspective from TK to 8th grade, can you draw us a picture of what your amazing school is, and then tell us about it, and then we'll use those words as part of the generating of our school climate and culture. The second thing we wanted to do was to develop a site equity action team that really holds the schools accountable for equitable education, evaluation, teacher training, and discipline of students. One example a parent gave was where her son was being disciplined in a way that was culturally not coherent to what he was being written up for. And so how do we hold accountability to that? And who do we get to train individuals on being aware and cognizant of that? And then to hire African American men as teachers and to provide housing and a path to home ownership over time. And I would say just qualified teachers that can reach our African American men and women. I'm still teetering on that number 3 for me because I am an African American female. However, I understand the importance of having male role models for our African American males in schools. And sometimes it's not just African Americans that can be the best role model if we really are looking globally. And if we're looking worldly, we might not want to just isolate it to one dimension. That should definitely be a priority, but I don't think it's the only way to reach our youth. And so really emphasizing how we hire, who we hire, and what their credentials are to reach the students that we need them to reach.
Hi, I'm Kate, and this is Richard. We are 2 of half a dozen or so members of the Fiscal Integrity and Transparency Working Group. We've been meeting weekly over the last month and a half or so, and we've engaged with individual members of both the school board, the district school board, and the Willow Creek board for both fact-finding and to support a deeper understanding of the financial situation of the district. Thank you for balancing the seat for me there. These are scary. We've identified some high-level goals which are going to guide our work over the coming weeks and form the basis of our final recommendations to the Unification Committee. First off is community stability. We want to support the ultimate goal of unification by ensuring interim funding for all students of the community, including Bayside MLK and Willow Creek Academy. We want to inspire community confidence that we think we can achieve that if we encourage the district to report out financial information in a way that can be distilled accurately in a standardized and understandable manner. We think that community confidence in the district allocation of funds will be increased by a shared understanding of the numbers. And we support a mechanism for financial data fact-checking. We think that there needs to be more transparency. We recommend that all negotiators clarify their positions on key aspects regarding unification, such as reserve spending, the meaning of charter oversight, and any behind-the-scenes discussion on unification and ways of supporting all students during the interim years between now and ultimate unification. Finally, we want to support confidence for families to prevent district attrition. It's our goal that families in the district will be inspired that the district has a financial plan that will result in exemplary education for all kids in the 94965 community. Somebody? Thanks. I think I'm done, so. Was there another group?
I have the mic again. I am here with several members of the Transportation Committee. We met once, and we assigned ourselves activities that we worked on in the interim, and then we reported back over email. If it's all right with you guys, I was proposing forming a mission statement or a vision statement for our group so that we could present ourselves to the broader community, and possibly that's what we'll work on next. Do you want to add anything, Jennifer?
Sure. I think we did a lot of great research, and by we, I mean not me, Kirsten and Diane specifically. We understand a lot about the options available to us around transportation, but it's hard to go any further than that when we don't know the structure that we're serving, the hours, how each campus will be used, if each so we felt like perhaps we should combine ourselves with the facilities committee, and there was some conversation around that happening. I don't know if facilities. Oh, yeah. No, I know. Is that you? Great. So I think that feels to our group, if I understood our email chain, to be a good next step. So we could combine and maybe be a subcommittee of facilities or something to that effect. Is that it? Facilities.
Hi. So this will be quick, but our leader of our group had to leave because she had a child here tonight, so she has all the notes. But in general, we felt the same way that on facilities, it really we need to have an idea of what the overall vision is. Is this definitely a K through 8 vision and so forth, so that it'd be hard otherwise. You could create options for facilities, but you really need to have the facilities supporting what the vision is. But also, just in general, we feel that there is definitely, from talking to people in both Marin City community as well as in Sausalito, there seems to be some consistent angst about where the schools, would it be we have 2 campuses, would K through 5 be on one, and which one would it be? Would the middle school be there or here? Would it be one campus, K through 8? Could this campus or Bayside MLK even support that? So there's a lot of angst, I would say, because people don't know what they don't know. And but I think there's also a lot of internal hope because we do have 2 good campuses, which is great. It's, to support a size of students for this district. That's a blessing. So we want to kind of hold on to that. There is definitely need for more information because we don't know what transportation options there are, so I think combining both our groups is great. There is definitely a strong need to connect the campuses. So however it was formed, whether one campus is K through 5 and one campus is a middle school, how do we really connect the campuses? It's almost like the campuses represent us as community, so how do we do that in a beautiful way? And, not only just through real transportation, buses or what have you, but also through some sort of pathway, some sort of garden pathway that connects the two. So it really feels like a cohesive facility for the schools. We also have talked a lot about their needs in 94965 to be a community center, because I'm sure all of us have grown up where there was access to some sort of center that people could come together for sports events, for theater events, for community dinners. You could do it at the school, but really good communities have a place that people can congregate. If one of these campuses had that, had a soccer field, had a pool, had a place to support 500, dinners and those kind of things, plays and so forth, that would be great. But I don't believe either campus really has that. So how could we extend one of those campuses? Even educational nights for parents, for kids, those kind of things. It would be great to have a location, whether it be at one of these schools or turn one of these schools into the community center if the other campus could support a K through 8, or find another location somewhere in between that the 94965 district could one day have a community center. I know in Mill Valley, when they built that community center, having had so many elementary schools all feeding into the middle school and ultimately a lot to the high school, that community center definitely brought a lot of kids together and families that were going to ultimately be in the same one school later. So having sports and theater and just, having a beer, or not a beer, I guess you wouldn't do that at the community center, but, having fun together with people that you may not be living next door to, but are part of your community, we think is a critical part of facilities and the overall vision. That's it.
So those of you that are left, please give yourselves a big round of applause, everybody. I hope that all of you are leaving here tonight with your spirit somewhat lifted, as am I. I am in awe and deep gratitude to all of you for your commitment, for your dedication, for your passion, for your work to make this a reality. It can't happen without all of you. So we heard your recommendations. I will work hard on putting more of them into reality. And please, any of your committee members that didn't make it tonight, remind them about December the 13th, remind them about December the 17th, and I will see all of you really soon. Thank you and good night.